Somebody sent me this hat to my PO box. It's an awesome hat. I'm aware it's a child's hat and doesn't really fit on my head properly, but you know what? I'm proud of my Pokemon Go team affiliation, and I'm very thankful that somebody sent me this hat, so I'm going to wear the hat. Hello and welcome to part 151 of Backing the Boro. I'm Kevin. Coming up on today's episode, we're going to have a look through all of our summer transfers, ins and outs. And also we're going to play not the Charity Shield, Kev, showing your age there. The Community Shield against Manchester United, because it's the opportunity for another trophy. If we just remind ourselves what our trophy cabinet looks like at the moment, there's a lot of stuff in there that's fairly meaningless. I mean, winning the Championship was quite nice. Winning League One was quite nice. Other than that, winning the National League North was quite nice. The Calagas League Premier Division, that happened before my time. I imagine that was great. And there's lots of youth stuff that's been going on. Apparently we have got a youth team after all. Who knew? But it would be nice to add a Community Shield to our collection of proper top-level senior trophies, because everyone knows most seasons the Community Shield is the one that everybody wants. So that's what we're going to be going for today. Get our first trophy on the board for the season. But before we do that, we do need to have a look at these transfers. And it has been a busy summer with a purpose. And the purpose has been slightly different to the normal purpose, because it's not necessarily been about strengthening the squad. Because I think I don't know that this squad is as good as the one we had last season. But what this squad is it's bigger and it's got more homegrown players in, so we can actually fill out a 25-man Premier League squad. So we've moved on a couple of fringe players who weren't homegrown, because what's the point in having them around if they're fringe players, and brought in some players who should be in and around our first team, but because they're English or British, they're massively overpriced. And there's not much we can do about that. That's just the nature of things. But the players that have left, Lakga has gone. Gail Moulan has gone permanently. Sean Hull has gone out on loan again. Kusin, the left back we signed years ago and never played, he's gone for $1.5 million. And we have sold Holmqvist because we brought in two good centre backs. Holmqvist was out of contract at the end of the season. He's 25 now. I think he had an opportunity. He had 2.5 years as basically being our starting centre-back. Never really took his opportunity. He can go and try and make a life of it over in Italy playing for Fiorentina. The other one that got away is David Fazio, who he was released by Tottenham. We did agree a contract with him. He was on £6,000 a week at Tottenham. We agreed a contract with him at £30,000 a week, which I thought was a lot of money. And then Brighton came in and offered him £240,000 a week. We not only had no interest in competing with that, we wouldn't have been able to compete with that, even if we'd have wanted to. We can't be paying people £240,000 a week. It just doesn't work. So Fazio has gone to Brighton. I just don't understand how that was a thing that Brighton have agreed to do. That was just mad. So let's have a look at the players who've arrived. The first one, although he's a little overpriced, has the potential to end up being a superstar for us. He's a 21-year-old English under-21 international who has 9 goals from 10 under-21 appearances, 3.5-star current ability, so he's as good as any striker we've currently got at the club, 4.5-star potential, so could end up better than Kerr, better than Jensen, better than Aguero. The one downside to him is he's only ever scored 1 goal in the Premier League, and he's only actually played a handful of games in the Premier League. He's basically had 1 season playing for Burnley down in the Championship. It was a decent season, 14 goals, 7 assists from 37 matches, of which he started 34 of them, but it's not earth-shatteringly good for down in. It's not as good as Sean Hull was down in the Championship, as an example, but he's several years younger than Hull, has more potential than Hull ever had. So £22 million up front with the potential to rise up to £27 million. Yes, it's a lot of money, but not only is he English, he's under 21. So not only will we be able to register him as a homegrown player when that time comes, but at the moment, because he's English and under 21, we don't even have to register him at all. So he's just a bonus player, and we didn't have anyone like that at the club at the moment. So he just comes in as a 5th striker, effectively. Graham Sterling is a new centre-back who's arrived, and I've misunderstood homegrown rules by bringing this guy in because he's Scottish, and I've made this mistake twice. The second one, less of a mistake. But this guy, Graham Sterling, I thought because he'd played... I looked at this and thought, well, he's played in England for the last 9 years, apart from a little spell at Celtic. Surely he counts as homegrown. But I guess because he's Scottish, he's never taken on English nationality, because presumably that's not even something you can do. So because he's Scottish, he's already British, but not homegrown. So he doesn't actually count towards our homegrown quota, which is a problem. I brought him in because he's as good as Kulikov, as good as Brodic, and I thought he was going to be another homegrown one. He was basically brought in as the new Holmqvist, but it turns out he's not actually homegrown. And then made matters worse by finally identifying the experienced, better than what we've got at the club centre-back that I wanted to bring in. And he's Scottish as well. And same situation. Scottish, doesn't count as homegrown, but irrelevant of nationality, I would have brought this guy in anyway. 4-star current ability as a centre-back. He's been playing in the Premier League for the last 10 years. Been at Brighton, been at Burnley, most recently been at Arsenal, where he's been fairly regular for Arsenal as well. And he was coming in regardless of nationality, but the fact I've signed 2 Scottish centre-backs does make me look like a bit of a buffoon when I was trying to add homegrown players. But we let James Ball have the purse strings to bring in some homegrown youngsters. He's messed up a little bit. Barry Sutton. These are all James Ball signings. He's not any good, but at least he's English. Tyler Kinnear-Stern. He's not any good, but at least he's English. Scott Elliott. He's not any good, but at least he's English. And who was the other one? I think this was one of James Ball's as well, because I certainly didn't sign this guy. Cherubin Kayembe, he's not any good, and he's Congolese, and I don't get that one at all. But then I filled out the squad a little bit further with 2 more signings. This is my replacement for Fazio, another loan player. He can just as comfortable playing central midfield or attacking midfield. He's on loan from Arsenal. Trong Antoine, 3-star current ability, 4.5-star potential. He's had a lot of time down in the Championship, and he looks promising. He's a promising youngster, 4.5-star potential. That's the kind of player we want to be bringing into the club. But he's another very attacking midfielder, along with the likes of McAllister, Wagner, Nuhu that we've got at the moment. And then we've also brought in this guy purely because he was cheap and English to be a 25th man in our 25-man squad. Jack Naylor, 22-year-old central midfielder, only 2.5-star current ability, not much potential to improve either, but he's an extra man to have, and he was cheap, and at least we won't get to that situation we were at towards the end of last season where we were struggling to fill a bench, because we're going to have players like Jack Naylor knocking around the team. So all of that being said, this is the team that we're putting out there for the Community Shield against Manchester United. Vujacic has been subject to constant transfer offers all summer from big European clubs, but no one's offered us more than 15 million quid for him. We've agreed with him that he'll stay this season to see if we can get into the Champions League. I think that is probably a tall order, but at least it delays the inevitable for a year. If it gets a year down the line and we have to take 15 million quid for him, then we'll have to. But we paid 27 million pounds. I don't want to accept less than 30 million for him. So either we end up in the Championship and he's happy. In the Champions League, oh God, there you go. That's a sneak preview of how things are more likely to happen. Either we end up in the Champions League and he decides to stay, or we just have to cut our losses on him and promote Oliveira finally. But I think Vujacic will be most likely leaving at the end of this season. But he's in goal for us today. And then we've got a back four of Joksimovic, Brodic, New Boy Ferguson and Carrascal at right back. And then in the midfield, we've got Wanda, Hayes and New Boy Trong Antoine. We're just going to call him Twan because why not? Nuhu in behind Naguera and the other new boy, Charlie Jones, who gets the number 9 shirt. And straight away, you can see we have got a little bit more option down on the bench. Although that being said, Paul Blake is going to leave. Stojanovic won't make it into our squad. Naylor's basically our new Stojanovic, taking that squad spot, but he's English, so fits better. Because that then allows us to put Gallego into the squad, who can play centre-back or central midfield. And, Jensen, surprisingly, despite breaking his leg, could be back as soon as 6 weeks' time, when I thought he was going to be out most of the way until Christmas. So we could end up with 4 very good strikers in the near future, which means when we have to decide on our Premier League squad in 4 days' time, I'm going to have to make a decision about Lazic. Do we take him out of the squad and maybe put someone like Stojanovic back in, or even bring in another player? We've still got money to spend. We could bring in... I could probably still do with a proper Fazio replacement. We'll see how Twan is today. He might be brilliant, in which case we don't need to worry. But I feel like we're maybe a midfielder short. And if we can take Lazic out of the squad, that midfielder then doesn't have to be English. And that might be a bit of a bonus for us. But let's get into the game, see how we get on. Really, we want to see what this new lad up front is like. If Jones ends up being as good as he could potentially be, we could have a superstar in our hands, a 21-year-old player who's been scoring almost a goal a game for England under 21s. If he can come in and be half as good as he has the potential to be, then we're going to have a player on our hands, and he'll be an English player, which is going to be even more important when it comes to picking our Europa League squad, because we're supposed to have homegrown players from our club, and we have none of them. So we're all going to be playing on a small squad in that competition. Right. Let's get into the game. Let's keep a very close eye on Twan, on Ferguson, on Jones. Let's see how the 3 new boys get on. We have got Sterling on the bench as well. And who was the I think we did bring in others. Naylor, was that his name? He's not on the bench because Kovacevic is today. He's probably going to be going out on loan. Again, purely because he's not English. And we can't really fit him in the squad as a promising youngster. I don't know how Nuhu's still good then, isn't he? I don't know how homegrown status is going to work with Kovacevic, because he signed for us aged 18. So when he turns 21, does he become homegrown at the club? Or does it not work quite that simple, especially if we now loan him out to a club not in the UK or not in England? Is that going to wreck that? But either way, I don't think I can fit him into my squad this year. Unless we just back him completely and say, right, you're the new Fazio. Get in this team. Play regularly, get yourself homegrown. Nogueira has just scored a ridiculous goal. It's the most fortuitous goal Nogueira will score in his entire career, and inexplicably, 18 minutes into the Community Shield at Wembley, we're 2-0 up against all-conquering, super dominant Manchester United, who are under new management. They've got Jardim as their new manager after Mourinho's retirement. I was linked with the manager's job at both Manchester United and Manchester City this summer. I was also offered international jobs at Italy and Holland, and I've turned all of that down, obviously. We're with Nuneaton for the long haul. I might, if I ever get offered the England job, take that on as well as Nuneaton, but I'm not going to go and manage Italy or someone like that. That just seems a little bit silly. Nuhu's just scored a 3rd goal inside 20 minutes. Oh my word. Now, I appreciate this is the Community Shield, and there's a very good chance this isn't a typical Manchester United side. They might be playing some rotated players. It might just be that the new manager doesn't really know how to pick a team yet. It might have been that he's been rebuilding over the summer. This might be the start of the fall of Manchester United. But there's that little bit at the back of your mind that just thinks, there's another thing it might be, Kev. We might have turned into a really, really good side. Perhaps Ferguson was the missing piece of the jigsaw. Now we've got a proper defender at the back, albeit an old man, but a proper defender alongside Brodic. The midfield might not be any weaker, bringing Twan in for Fazio, and Jones might be the new superstar striker we needed to replace Jensen. Maybe, just maybe, we're not as rubbish as we think we are. We have got a couple of knocks, though. Both Wanda and Nogueira are now carrying knocks into the second half. So I think we're probably going to look to take them both off fairly early on in this second half, because it is the Community Shield. As much as we'd like a trophy, it obviously doesn't really matter. And we are 3-0 up. Nuhu plays Nogueira through. Jones is in the middle. Cross towards Jones. Jones has made it 4 on 51 minutes. And I think it's time to make those 2 changes. And Charlie Jones is having the debut of his dreams. He doesn't understand what he's walked into. Right, Kerr and Jones, we can swap those 2 over, because I think Jones primarily is a target man or complete forward, whereas Kerr wants to be an advanced forward. So we weren't even playing Jones in his preferred position in that first half. We're going to take Wander off as well. We may as well give Kovacevic a run out. I don't know how we can shuffle around this midfield. Hayes actually as Carrilero, probably is the way to do it. This is where we miss Fazio, because we don't have that box-to-box midfielder type player that Fazio was, other than with Wanda, obviously. And it was nice having both of them at the club who could both play deep line playmaker or Carrilero, whereas you've just seen with Kovacevic, he can only do one of the two. So if Wanda's off, we have to kind of shuffle people around a bit. Hayes playing as a Carrilero isn't ideal because he's very much a playmaker. I usually use him as the deep line playmaker or the roaming playmaker. So I think we need a running midfielder to finish off this team. And I still don't know what I'm going to buy. It's weird doing the first episode of a new season when there's still 4 days of transfer window left. It's like the old days when it used to end at the end of August. Playing the Community Shield while we can still make changes to the team is awesome. Right, who shall we take off? We might actually have a look at the other new guy at the back, Graham Sterling. Can we only make 3 substitutions in this, or can we bring on a 4th? We might as well have a look at Lazic, if we can bring on a 4th. We can bring on a 4th. Let's have a look at Lazic then. See if he's suddenly turned into a decent striker over the summer. And do we take off Nuhu just to get him a standing ovation? Can we do a 5th? We can. There you go. We get Wagner on. Can we do a 6th? Let's just keep making changes until it tells me to stop. Goodness me, we can. Can we do a 7th? No. 6 substitutions then. The last one was a little bit silly and pointless, but I probably should have saved it. We're going to take an injury now, but I think they're all players we would like to have a little look at in this game. Oliveira, it would have been nice to give him a run out at Wembley as well, especially because he didn't get the Wembley appearance at the end of last season in the FA Cup final that he would have liked. Kerr has just made it 5-0. I mean, there's only so much I can try and temper expectation here. It's Manchester United 0, Nuneaton Town 5 at Wembley. This is the Manchester United team that won the Premier League by like 30 points last season. It's not like we've got Wigan in the Community Shield and we're just having a bit of fun. This is the all-conquering, super dominant Manchester United team that has ruined everybody else's fun for the last 20 years. And we're beating them 5-0 at Wembley. I don't care that this is a friendly. I don't care that it's the Community Shield. You enjoy this as an Nuneaton Town fan. And Vujicic is just going to keep hold of the ball, let the Man United player run at him, pick it up. What an absolute hero. There you go. He doesn't need to leave now. He's just experienced this. This has got to be one of the greatest days in the lives of every single one of these players. And we've just picked up another trophy, even though it looks like a cup rather than a shield. We're not going to argue. We'll take it as a cup, and look how happy Vujicic is. See, he didn't need Champions League football. He just needs to enjoy more days like this. I've got to see what the media make of that, because that was just absolutely nutso. I can't believe that. That's insane. So, the Nuneaton Lift Community Shield. Is that it? Is that all we're getting? I was hoping we would get the Man United manager sacked, but apparently not. Well, in tomorrow's episode, we'll continue from there and I guess finish off the transfer window, and I suppose we'll play the first couple of games of the Premier League season, or maybe we'll move on to the start of the Europa League. I kind of want to see how we get on in the league now, though. So we might even do those two, and then we'll figure something out. If you've enjoyed that, please make sure you leave a nice big thumbs up on there for me. Subscribe to the channel for daily Football Manager videos, and thank you very much for watching.